Does this mean we're the champs now? Huh, I don't know. I mean, I'm still pretty new to this hockey thing, but yeah, I guess I imagine it would. Incredible. I wonder what the rings are going to look like. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome to Kraken R&R, where the Seattle Kraken go to Colorado and defeat the defending champs 3-2 in their own building. And in regulation, nonetheless. Now, yes, as many of you may know, the team that I cheered for before the Kraken started playing games was the Colorado Avalanche, so you might be wondering why I'm so excited to see the Avalanche lose to a team like the Kraken. Well, for one, I've been all in on the Kraken since day one, hometown team and all that, and no, it doesn't have anything to do with the Russell Wilson trade. I mean, besides, we already all well know at this point that the Seahawks fleeced the Broncos in that trade anyway. And for another, let's face it, the Avalanche did me dirty by waiting until the year after I was cheering for them as my favorite team to win the Cup. I mean, I was still very happy to see them win it since the Kraken couldn't at that point. But even aside from all that, and even for those of you out there who are still Avalanche fans first and foremost, which, if that is the case, kudos on still watching this video to this point. I mean, honestly, if I was you, I probably wouldn't be, but I appreciate you sticking around. And to that note, there is still good news to come out of this game for the Avalanche. And that's the fact that with this loss to the Kraken, they're still in the running for the President's Trophy. Why would I say that, I hear you ask? Well, I'm glad you did ask. And that's because the Kraken have never lost a game to the eventual President's Trophy winner, since last season, the Florida Panthers got swept in 2 games by the Kraken en route to winning the President's Trophy. Now, granted, as I say that, there's a couple of reasons that this might not actually be good news, I guess, to Colorado Avalanche fans. For one, in order to get there, you do still have to lose to the Kraken 2 more times. And for another, the President's Trophy and the curse that comes with it is not always something fans are excited about, but it would mean you get a good regular season when you're not playing the Kraken. Anyway, enough about the Avalanche, and let's get to the Kraken, since that's what everybody who I guess isn't a masochist Avalanche fan is here for in the first place. Now, before we get to the game, first things first, yes, between the last game and this one, there was the announcement of the reverse retro jersey and the 3rd jersey ever in Seattle Kraken history, behind the home and away jersey, of course. And I will be doing a full reaction video on the Kraken one, and probably even a couple on just the whole reverse retro series in general. But as you might be able to tell, my voice is still not fully recovered from the smoke or sickness or whatever happened to it. So I'm going to wait until I can rely on my voice to not be cracking constantly before I get to those videos. However, since surprisingly the Kraken game schedule doesn't care about the state of my vocal cords, we're still going to be here doing these post-game videos in the meantime, and trying to get through them thanks to the help of some tea that my wife made me. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. As we get into the game with Grubauer net for the Kraken, because of course he is facing his old team, and Burakovsky returning to Colorado for the first time since winning a cup with them, there's good news for Kraken fans right out of the gate in the first few minutes. In that there isn't a puck in the Kraken net in the first few minutes, which would actually end up staying true all the way into the end of the first, where we get to the end of that first period with the score still 0-0. That having been said, it wasn't a first period free of action, as honestly, the first period felt like it should have ended 1-1 or 2-1 in either direction, or maybe even 2-2. But still, the ice is yet to be broken after one, due in large part to the fact that both goaltenders, but Grubauer in particular, came to put on a show, especially in this first period. As early in the first, he makes a save on a 2-on-1 chance that Colorado had, and then somehow makes a save from this position sprawled out on his back. Now, yes, to be fair with this one, for one, it may not even have been a goal if it had gone in, as Grubauer got pushed to his back by an Avalanche player in the first place, and he also got a bit lucky that the shot here ends up going off of his toe pad and then off the crossbar before eventually flying up in the air and staying out. But still, a great series from Grubauer here to keep it out. And then after a couple more pretty good saves, even if you weren't impressed by that save by Grubauer, or honestly those saves, as again there were 2 in that series, he still had a show to put on as this first period went along. As we get more towards the middle of the period, he makes an even more spectacular save on a completely free, well, not completely free, I guess Dunn was still there, but on a pretty much free Newhook, who gets around Dunn and then is able to go backhand to forehand and then tries to go backhand again, but Grubauer is able to get his toe back just in time to make the toe save on Newhook's backhand attempt. And I mean, honestly, even though he's doing the splits here in the screenshot, it really doesn't do the save justice. I would just recommend going and watching the highlights of this game on the NHL channel, Sportsnet, wherever can actually show them without getting demonetized. Or, I guess, getting their monetization taken away. Meanwhile, as for Francouz at the other end, he too was put to the test a couple of times by the Kraken, once in particular by Jordan Eberle, who had a pretty clean look just from in front of the net. But Francouz was able to make a nice save there and also made another pretty nice save on McCann. Though, at least in the case of McCann, it wouldn't be the last time that those two faced off against each other over the course of the night. Okay, yes, I guess there was one other sort of highlight from the first period, and that is that there was a fight. Now, at least for me anyway, I'm not a huge fan of fights, but I know a lot of people are, and this one was certainly worth mentioning. One, because it was a big rig fight, which is always fun, and because Alexiak was fighting a Kraken legend in Curtis McDermott, who was Seattle's pick in the expansion draft from the LA Kings that they opted to not re-sign in free agency, and he went to the Avalanche immediately, or I guess like just a few weeks after the Kraken picked him in the expansion draft. Okay, maybe I'm kidding a little bit about him being a Kraken legend, but the team still had his rights for at least a couple of weeks before he went to free agency, which, I mean, it makes him one of the best 100 players they've ever had the rights to, so legend. We start the second in much the same way we started the first, with Grubauer having to put on a show in net. Although this time it happens a little bit quicker than it did in the first, as within the first 30 seconds, an Avalanche player has managed to weave his way through the entire Kraken roster, or what might as well be anyway, and get one-on-one versus Grubauer. But who is that player? I mean, I know I just called him a Kraken legend, but if it's McDermott, it's not really all that big of a deal. So let's just zoom in real quick. 9... Wait, that says 29, doesn't it? It's McKinnon! Ah! Fortunately, somehow Grubauer is able to make this save as well, and once again bail out the Kraken from allowing another odd man rush. And it turns out to be a good thing, because from here, things start to turn in Seattle's favor. Not long after, the Kraken allow one of the best players in the league to have a one-on-one chance against their goaltender, who hasn't gotten a Vezina vote since he played for the Avalanche. The Kraken end up getting their, I guess at this point, second power play of the game. They had one in the first about midway through, but it didn't really go much of anywhere and was killed off well by the Avalanche. This power play, however, it doesn't take very long to, well, allow the Avalanche player back out on the ice, as this new reimagined Kraken power play for the 2022-23 season connects on a beautiful, crisp, quick passing play, pretty much everything it wasn't last season. It's tape to tape, McCann down to Eberle, up to Schwartz, and into the back of the net to give the Kraken the 1-0 lead here still early in the second. So now, granted, it's great that the Kraken have a 1-0 lead and everything, but based on how the last couple of games went after the Kraken scored their first goals in those games, honestly, I'd just be happy getting out of the next minute and a half of play with it being a tie game still and the Kraken not having given up 2 goals in response. I mean, really, it would be perfect if they could just keep the puck out of the net in general. But of course, they're not able to, and 22 seconds later, the puck is in the back of a net again. But this time, it's Colorado's net, as the Kraken put a second on the board again in just 22 seconds after taking the 1-0 lead. This time, it's a Soucy shot from up in the corner by the blue line that is saved by Francouz, but McCann is out waiting for the rebound. The puck actually goes to a Kraken stick off of a rebound, which has been a rarity at the start of the season. McCann, his first attempt is once again saved by Francouz, and his second attempt, honestly, I'm not sure if it would have gone in, but Gerard, who's trying to dive in front of it to get his body in front of the puck, accidentally ends up kicking the puck in instead. Either way, the Kraken will take it, and McCann, who's already been robbed once this game, with some stubbornness and a little bit of help and luck, is able to get one in to give the Kraken that 2-0 lead, still pretty early here in the second. And just to add the cherry on top of all of it, once again for the second goal in a row, the Kraken are able to prevent the Avalanche from responding within the next 2 minutes. However, it doesn't last too much longer after that, as just about 4 minutes after the Kraken took that 2-0 lead, about 6 minutes into the second period, Nichushkin, on a defensive breakdown by the Kraken, finds Evan Rodriguez on the far side of the net, who Alexiak kind of just left by himself. Alexiak isn't able to stop the pass, and Rodriguez has a pretty easy goal to just shove into the side of the net before Grubauer can get across to stop it. And yes, for those eagle-eyed viewers out there who watch all or most of my videos, first of all, thank you very much if that is you, but this is the same Evan Rodriguez that I talked about in free agency, wanting to see the Kraken go after when he was not offered a qualifying offer by the Pittsburgh Penguins, after having a very good year there, especially at the start of the season, filling in for an injured Crosby and Malkin. Of course, the Kraken didn't end up going after him or Sonny Milano, who I also talked about, and instead brought back Donato and Sprong. Now, I'm not angry at all at the fact that Donato or even Sprong are back, but Rodriguez was definitely one of the guys out there that raised some eyebrows when he was released into the Wild. Well, I guess not the Wild. In fact, if you asked a Wild fan, probably pretty much the opposite in the Avalanche, but you know what I mean. And not long after the Avs pulled it within one, they get their first power play of the game, which fortunately the Kraken are able to kill off pretty well and actually even use that kill to build some momentum. And within a couple of minutes, they're back down to the Avs end of the ice. Larson gets the puck down into the corner where Kuhlman gets a beautiful pass out in front. It's a backhand pass between his legs while he's facing the boards, and it goes to a wide open McCann, who has a chance to get his second of the game. But Francouz, for the second time in the game, absolutely robs McCann. This one, an even more dirty robbery than the first one. I mean, McCann still has one, but he was very close to getting two here. And so eventually we do get to the end of the second with the score still 2-1 Kraken, as we did also have to get through another Colorado power play late in the second that Grubauer had to come up big on a number of occasions to keep the score from being tied at the end of the second. And also part of a Kraken power play that's broken up by the intermission, which doesn't end up scoring anything for the Kraken on either side of the intermission, which, as we know, tends to be the case more often when there's that break in the middle. Still, even without the Kraken scoring on this power play, it was more successful than the next power play that they would get about halfway through the third, where, unfortunately, about halfway through the power play, Dunn, who's pinching up to try to keep the puck in the zone, allows the puck past him, and then Burakovsky, who's covering for Dunn, also pinches trying to keep the puck in the zone. It also gets past him, and all of a sudden, we've got a 2-on-1 shorthanded chance for the Avalanche. And, you know, these 2-on-1 chances are definitely not something you want to see shorthanded. At the last second, though, Nichushkin's pass, it makes it clear that it's even worse than that, and it's actually a 3-on-1, as it goes to a, well, mostly open Bowen Byram, who gets the shot off and puts it into the back of the net to give the Avalanche the equalizing shorthanded goal. Now, I guess to Burakovsky's credit, although he does let two Avalanche players past him when he was the last line of defense, he does almost get back in time to stop the shot from Byram, but almost doesn't really count for anything, so yeah, not a good power play. From there, at least for the next few minutes anyway, play does start to even out a bit, or there's at least fewer grade A scoring chances at either end of the ice. Seattle might have the slight advantage, but it's slight if anything. Right up until, as the Kraken are exiting their zone in transition, Schwartz, who's kind of pinched up along the boards, decides to just loft the puck up in the air over the entire neutral zone and into the offensive zone, where somehow Carson Kuhlman is able to win a foot race, get to the puck first, and well, I guess part of the reason he won the foot race is because it was against Curtis McDermott, who then kind of decides to just ride Kuhlman like he's in the rodeo. But Kuhlman, even with one of the biggest players in the NHL on his back, is able to slingshot the puck towards the net, and it just goes right through the 5-hole of Francouz and into the back of it. Francouz, not at all pleased to be letting up this goal, flings it with his glove out of the net after the fact. But it doesn't matter, it's already in there and it's up on the board. It's 3-2 Kraken, and for Kuhlman, also had a pretty good game. Good to see him get on the board with this goal. It was also a third and lead-taking goal for the Kraken that was a very welcome sign, because in those few minutes between the second goal for the Avalanche and this goal by Kuhlman, we also found out that Grubauer had to end up leaving the game after it looked like he might have tweaked something in that second goal allowed the shorthanded one. He came up and went to the bench after that goal was allowed, stayed in for a little bit longer, but ultimately ended up leaving at the next whistle. Jones was in, and I mean, Jones wasn't quite as tested as Grubauer was throughout the rest of this game. There was one puck that found its way either past Jones or at least behind his back, as within the last few seconds, a puck is tipped behind Jones' back. It either goes off the post or off his arm. Either way, it goes clean in front of the net to the other side. Fortunately, in the air and wobbling about, so it isn't picked up by, once again, Rodriguez waiting on the other side. The Kraken dodge a bullet there in the final seconds and end up hanging on to win this game, as you know, 3-2. As for the Kraken 3 stars in this game, the first one, I mean, it's got to be Jared McCann, right? He could have easily had a hat trick in this game if it wasn't for how well Francouz was playing in net for the Avs. Ultimately, McCann has to just settle for the one goal, on top of also getting an assist on the first goal scored by Schwartz, and getting robbed at least once, if not twice, by Francouz. Still, I think McCann will take it. A pretty good night for him. The second star, got to be Carson Kuhlman. The, well, ultimately game-winning goal there where he just kind of flings it on net again while being almost tackled to the ice by one of the biggest players in the NHL, like I already said. But even aside from that, had a couple of other good scoring opportunities. Of course, that beautiful pass to McCann that ended up getting robbed by Francouz there in the second. Still, a great night all in all for Kuhlman, who has had a couple of tough games so far this season for the Kraken, so good to see him get on the right side of everything there. And then the third star, again, I could have gone a couple of different ways here. I really thought about giving it to Grubauer, and honestly, I would have given it to Grubauer if it wasn't for the fact that I just kind of feel like I have to give one to Jaden Schwartz. Again, Schwartz gets another goal in this one. He got the Kraken started with that first one on the power play. It also was his third already of the season, which now leads the team, and I've already had him kind of just be the fourth and honorable mention twice. So I'm going to give him this one, although Grubauer could have easily gotten it as well. And of course, if you're going to beat a team like the Avs, you need more than just 3 or 4 players playing near the top of their game. And there were definitely a few other guys worth mentioning. Carson Soucy had a great game. Jordan Eberle had a very good game, as well as Yanni Gourde, I think very well worth mentioning. Also worth mentioning, since people are tracking it, Shane Wright had the most ice time that he's had all season with 8 minutes and I want to say 21 seconds. So almost, well, a minute and a half, almost 2 minutes more than he's seen in any game yet. So starting to see a little more ice time. He didn't have quite as good of a game as he did in the last game of the homestand against the Blues. But that having been said, at least on one occasion that I can think of, he was out in front of the net to collect a rebound on a Donato wraparound chance that he wasn't quite able to get a clean shot off because there were 2 Avs players there to deny that shot and also kind of push him to the ice. But he got right back up and almost got another chance a little bit later. So making small steps forward, or at least certainly not taking any big steps back, and getting a little bit more ice time, which I think we're all happy to see. Also, now the third game that he's played in a row, which is also a good sign. For the Kraken as a whole coming out of this game, I mean, first things first, you have to hope that Grubauer is okay and this doesn't turn into an injury or a long-term nagging thing that prevents him from getting into any kind of a groove as we get more into this season. Hopefully he can bounce back. I would kind of expect to see Jones in net for the next game anyways. They really have been going with a true platoon so far this season. Still, hopefully Grubauer can bounce back and wasn't too badly hurt from whatever happened here that took him out of the game. On the positive end, the Kraken get their second win of the season, bringing their overall record to 2-2-2, right back to 500, the latest in any season they've been hockey 500 or better, and also improve their road record now to 2-0-1, still yet to lose in regulation on the road, and this time do it against truly one of the best teams in the league, showing that that team that just looked terrible in those 2 games at home has at least been put back on the shelf for the time being, and hopefully stays there for a while. With that said, though, I think I'm going to try and wrap this one up for the sake of trying to save any amount of my voice for the next couple of days. So I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section of this game. Party it up down there. Big win for the Kraken, who your 3 stars are and all that. And if you've made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you liked or enjoyed this video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below that help support the channel, so I'd appreciate you using them. Until next time, stay safe out there, good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.